scripted feature.
This is my first feature as a director, and I did direct a documentary many years ago, and I've also produced a couple features, but this is definitely my first narrative feature as a director. The documentary is all about me. I mean, like, I made a movie about myself and my dad, and it was like such a small project. I can't believe when people come up to me, it's like, oh, I saw your documentary. I'm like, really? Where? It was like so tiny. With this film, I mean, very clearly she's a toy designer, and that's my day job, and like all the toys that she designed, like Justin Bieber and moves like Jagger, like I actually designed. So in terms of like on the superficial level, like her job is very much, based on my job. But, like on a bigger level, I feel like, like I really channel a lot myself into the Ruby character because she's, an Asian who's a fish out of water in Asia. And that was something that I experienced a lot when I, lived in Hong Kong for 5 years as an expat. And, like at the end of 5 years, I was like, I think I'm like ready to go home. And by home, I meant, here in the US. I actually don't speak Cantonese, but I speak Mandarin because I'm from Taiwan originally.
I see.
So I'm able to get by speaking a mix of Mandarin and English when I'm in Hong Kong. So I just sort of never picked up Cantonese except for like very few phrases.
And the interesting thing about that is that because you're Asian, people wouldn't think that you're an expat, right?
Right.
They think, oh, she's fine.
Yeah.
It's not what you know.
No, and so like in the scenes where like people keep coming up to Ruby and speaking like Cantonese, like I get that all the time because clearly, I mean, I look Chinese, I am Chinese, so they assume I know how to speak Chinese, and they're constantly like speaking to me in Cantonese, and I have to very awkwardly say, oh, sorry, do you speak Mandarin or do you speak English? Or sometimes when I just sort of like answer, oh, sorry, I don't speak Cantonese, I speak English, and I would hear them say, oh, she must be Korean. Like I get that a lot. So it's like this type of stuff that like happens to me all the time, and like I wrote that into like the script for the Ruby character. This was actually based on a real life encounter I had. So very specifically, like I had met an expat in Hong Kong, and we spent a night sort of like we went to sing karaoke until 6 a.m. in the morning, and just what I thought had a really magical night. Like we spent all night talking, and then like it wasn't until like at the end of the night that I found out that he had a girlfriend, and it was like, wait, we just spent the last like 8 hours together. Like you didn't like even mentioning passing once you had a girlfriend. Like that was very bizarre to me. So that was sort of like the impetus of this like whole script. When I was living in Hong Kong, like I've always wanted to make a sort of a walk and talk romance that pays homage to the city.
Is acting always something that where you were planning to go in your life?
I think it's something that's always struck like a really strong interest and passion, but it's something that I was terrified to pursue. So I graduated college. I have a BA in economics, and it was only until I moved to LA. I moved to LA, and I told my parents that I was just like figuring it out. But for that year, I was going hard. I was going to auditions, went to multiple classes, got myself a manager, booked a couple roles, and I didn't even tell them that I booked those roles. They asked me one day. They were like, a friend told us that they saw you on a daytime show. Were you on it? And I was like, yeah, I was on a soap opera. Booked a couple jobs, but it wasn't until I booked my series lead role that I told them that it's something that I was pursuing. But it's something that I always wanted to secretly pursue, but I'm so afraid of failure that I didn't want to tell anyone I was doing it. So.
Especially in a business that's so hard to succeed in.
Well, of course, and especially there's such a weird like negative stigma against people who tested the waters with reality and then want to transition into something else. We get a little flack for that. So,
what is it that sort of attracted you to doing an independent film?
There's also The Abduction of Eden that I did. It's rare that there are these leading roles for Asian women, and so obviously that is a huge draw for me personally. But I feel that when you're on an independent set or project, there really is like a creative force that's driving the film, and there's so much creative freedom, not to say that big studio movies don't have creative freedom. It's just a more special, intimate feeling that you have with the crew.
Like a family.
Yeah, and the director and your cast. And I think when you have a safe place to work and to really take some chances, I think something really beautiful comes out of that. And that has been my experience with Eden, and It's Already Tomorrow in Hong Kong.
What about this character was most interesting to you?
I was born in the States as well. Going back to Korea, I think it would be such a culture shock, and it would be a fish out of water. And I've met Americans or Europeans who now live in Korea, and it's something that they're so used to, and they speak better Korean than me. Mm-hmm. So, it's something that was so relatable in that way, but also the story of love and misconnections and off timing, and the question of what is cheating? Is emotional cheating just as bad as physical cheating? I don't know. There was so many different elements of the story that I found really intriguing.
What drew you to the film? Because obviously you were going to not have to speak any Cantonese or Mandarin.
Well, I did speak some Cantonese in it, yeah.
Yeah, there was a really great scene where my character doesn't know how to speak Cantonese, and he busts out the Cantonese and schools me.
That's brilliant.
I worked with Emily twice before on a film called The Kitchen that she produced, and another film called A Year and Change that she produced. And so we already had a great working relationship, and I already trusted her, which is the first thing you want with an actor and a director in that relationship. I thought it was an interesting take on having the white expat being the local guy who shows the Asian American around Hong Kong. I just thought that was really interesting, and I thought that Hong Kong has never been featured from a Western point of view. I've seen it in Hong Kong films, but I haven't seen a Western film that takes place in Hong Kong. So I really was excited about that. It was a really smart, intellectual film that with really good dialogue and interesting characters.
I think you're always fighting. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but you're immediately attracted to someone and there's something there, but it's just not the right time, and there's the moral complexity of is this something should I pursue or something that you should probably just leave alone. It's just relationships are complicated. It's never black and white, and I think that's really what the story is about.
Yeah, I think everybody can understand timing and how that takes place in people's relationships and in the beginning or endings of their relationships. And I feel like this film presents that question: is the timing right? And I think everybody comes to that place in their life. Well, they're not gonna leave it up to timing. They're gonna make their own time, And these characters have to make a choice. Is the timing right? While these two characters are walking and talking and falling in love with each other, they're falling in love with the city of Hong Kong, and it truly is a love letter to Hong Kong. And I hope that people, especially in America, will go out to Hong Kong and visit.
So Hong Kong's the leading character.
I think so. I always thought that. I really do.